we've talked about ESG funds, and you just mentioned bonds. Do we see ESG funds or options across the various spectrums of company size? I tend to think of, when I think of ESG, I usually think that even HRC's index is they're only really big companies, right? These are large cap or mega cap companies, right? They're not medium cap or small cap companies that are included in this index just because they can't do all 5,000 companies that are in the stock market, right? So they have a
Right.
smaller list.
Right.
Are ESGs doing a better job with maybe filtering and doing some looking at some of those medium sized and smaller companies?
Well, the harder part I think is what's available to the public and those types of things. So the larger corporations have, a lot of disclosures and regulations they follow. Not that smaller companies don't, but it's just harder to look under the hood and get all the information. We are seeing though that there is a movement to have smaller companies. I mean, that's usually where you start is small and build to big. There's a new certification that is getting a lot of attention called a certified B Corporation. And a B Corporation is a company that is wanting to be mission driven and balancing their purpose and their profit. So I think we're going to see more and more of the B corporations coming into our view. B corporations may not be on the stock market, so you might not be able to have a professional advisor help you with that investment. So you might have to really challenge yourself to find the information. But there is a B Corp's let's see, the website I had pulled up is called B Lab, and it does keep track of B Corps and information and how that works and some of the tools and resources you could do to get started on that. Harvard
Nice.
did a good research paper on it. And I think we're going to see more and more of that over the years because people are interested in being stewards of the planet. They're interested in making sure that we're going to be here a little longer than just a few years.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to go back to the question about where do people find information, because there's two other sources I'd like you to think about. And number one would be Morningstar's Sustainalytics. Sustainalytics.com is a good resource as well. You'll see a lot of third-party information about ESG. They have ratings and they talk to you about how their ratings work and why they do what they do. But it keeps up with some lists and company ratings. And then the other source I like, which is one of my favorites, is US SIF, which is U.S. as in Sam, S as in Sam, F as in Frank.org. And it is a forum for sustainable and responsible investing. So
Nice.
it brings together people all over the globe. It's also a nonprofit, it's a foundation, but it brings together investors and advisors and portfolio managers and companies and everyone to continue to have conversations about how do we move forward with ESG and what makes it, a complete conversation. They have some really good training as well. And the education, I think, is really important for consumers. It's free education. It's really good education. And you can just go to that website and go to the Education Center and take a course on sustainable investing basics. But they also look at racial justice and, some of the other things that I think are really important details. So US SIF would be a really good resource, I think, for your, the viewers to look at.
Absolutely. So we'll be sure to include in the show notes a link to all of these resources that Laura is mentioning. So I think this has been a great conversation. I think for me specifically, you've dispelled the myth that if I'm going to invest in socially responsible ESG type funds, that my returns are going to be lower. And I think that's, if I'm going to invest and I'm trying to keep up with the rate of inflation, especially today, that's one of my concerns, right? So
yeah.
I don't need to choose which devil I want to follow. I can actually choose the good path for both.
Mhm.
It's nice to know. So we want to take a little bit of a tack from our conversation, though, to David and I have been investing in the investing world long enough to have seen a number of LGBTQ focused funds come and go. We saw the EQLT ETF a couple of years ago change. Just recently, there was the LGBTQ plus, was that ETF by ESG 100? UBS had the PRID ETF a couple of years ago, and then that went defunct. Why do you think these funds seem to come and go, and there's always a lot of excitement around them, investing in companies that are so focused on companies that are good to the LGBTQ community, have inclusive policies and procedures, have protections for LGBTQ employees, but then they always seem to fizzle out. What is going on here? Any idea?
Well, I mean, just like any other investment, it's supply and demand, I think. If you come out with a great product, but you can't get people to buy it because you can't communicate your message or get it to them, then it seems to just fail. That happens with a lot of investments. It's not just the ones that you named, but it's a lot of investments. You get people come together and think they're going to create something that we're all going to buy, and it just doesn't go anywhere. I know when I was thinking about when the satellite radio came into play. I think it was in 2000 or something, 99. We thought that was the latest, greatest thing. It was going to get rid of cable. Everyone was going to buy it. Well, the price of that stock stayed the same and just stayed flat. And finally, the two competitors merged together. And I don't think the price of the stock has done much since then. So, there's not always this good idea equals profit, right? Profit comes from supply and demand. If I want to buy something for whatever reason, it makes me feel good, or I'm hoping to make a profit, I have to have a reason to do that. I have to get off the couch to do it. And some companies are just better at others when it comes to marketing, or maybe have more capital. I mean, unfortunately, that's where it comes down to. So, as we see more and more people interested in ESG and value-based investing and wanting to have things the way we want them, then maybe we'll see time where some of those types of funds will grow and will be able to continue to have a profit and find a place in the market. It just takes us a long time to change. We just don't like it. And LGBTQ, even our community, we used to be LGBT, and then we added a Q, and we have a plus. We as a group are still evolving, and we as a group are still trying to find legal rights, right? So we're focused a lot on that area, and not necessarily focused on the investment world or other things. But I think as we become more and more comfortable with obtaining and maintaining legal rights, then maybe a shift will happen, and we'll see that this is important too, and maybe the next best thing to do is put our money where we can control it, where we want it, where we have companies that support us. That's my hope. I'm just hoping.
Okay.
Your lips to God's ears, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting when you think your comments there about we may not necessarily as a community be focused on investing yet. And there is data that kind of shows that we as a community lag the general market, the general population significantly when it comes to what actually having investment accounts and how much we have in them. And so there probably isn't the demand out there for those kinds of products. And probably there isn't the awareness. You mentioned that a whole idea of these companies need to put up the capital to be able to get the message out. And maybe they're just not doing that to reach the right people, right? Are they reaching financial advisors who actually have or are LGBT or have LGBT clients and telling them, hey, here's an option for you? Or are they not reaching the LGBT community in ways in which the LGBT community will perk up and pay attention and say, oh, I want to do this. This is a good thing to do with my money. Because the data shows we have over $1 trillion in buying power as a community annually.
Yes.
1.4 now.
Even if 1% of that money was being put into investing, we're talking about billions of dollars that would be going into investing. And so I think maybe your point is that maybe this is something that is going to happen. We just need to give it some time.
Yeah, now you're hitting my dreams, because I'm like, I've been in the business almost 30 years and a lot hasn't changed. And I think one of the things for us as a community is we've struggled so much with being put down and discriminated and not being able to show up fully, not wanting to have conversations fully. So the money hasn't always been able to be preserved or passed on in our community. My hope is we build a rainbow network, to tell you the truth. I think we need to look at some of the ways that other organizations in this country operate and build out foundations that support LGBTQ. We need housing. We need safe housing for not only our teens and transgender folks, we need housing for elders. That's one of the most terrifying thing is to understand that most of our elders are worried about dying alone and in poverty. And so if we looked at some of the organizations and how they do it and take care of their elders and how they keep that money in the community, then maybe some of those things will happen, as well as being able to have investments that really just focus on us. It's hard to find an LGBTQ advisor too. To try to find us is really difficult. I'm a certified financial planner, and it takes several different steps in the find a planner search to even find LGBTQ. And
Yeah.
I've been trying to get them to get that to the top and put it in under services. And they're like, well, it's not really services. So, we're constantly trying to help them understand, well, people can't find me.
How is it
The
not
financial,
services?
yeah,
I don't
the
get that.
well, I know, I don't get it. They say services are retirement services, education, divorce, those kinds of things. So I'm working on it. I'm an ambassador for the CFP. So hopefully we'll get it going. But then we also have the Financial Planning Association, which we do have a group of us called Pride Planners, and we do a monthly webinar for the advisors and asking financial advisors to pay attention to who we are. Don't just be an ally. I mean, to me, that's crap. You need to be an advocate. I don't need any more allies. I don't need any more friends. I need some advocates out there
I like it.
pushing for conversations and making sure that we not only are at the table, we have a voice. And so, Pride Planners is something that we do have, but again, unless you know the name, it's hard to find it. So
Mhm.
I think some of us are going to need to help come together as a collaborative and say, what can we do to make sure our community has investments, has retirement planning and retirement savings, has safe place to live, and how do we put this all together? Hopefully we'll be able to make that happen in the next few years.
Well, now I know why we have to have you back, because now you're tapping into areas that David and I have been talking about behind the scenes. That maybe we need to become a little bit more public about. And I think a lot of parallels to what you just said there.
Well, good. I know, because I've been having conversations too, with Sage USA and several others. I'm like, okay, we need to do this stuff. We had a really good summit the other day, just last week. It was a LGBTQ elder summit and about elder fraud and, financial fraud and things like that. And some of the different organizations and nonprofits and advisors and government agencies around the country. I think there are about 30 of us in this virtual summit. And it was so cool because most of the people in the room were gay, lesbian people, transgender people. We were like, oh my God, we're all here. and they were, in different places, Social Security Administration. I mean, all these different places. And we were all together saying, okay, what can we do to collaborate? What do we need to do? And so we need to do that in the financial services industry as well.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We definitely have to have you back, and we've got a couple ideas for those topics in the future. But meanwhile, for those of our listeners who want to connect with you, how can our listeners or viewers connect with you and maybe even possibly work with you?
Well, I'm on Twitter a lot. I like Twitter because I can just kind of, put it out there and say hi and follow folks, and they can follow me. So I'm at Laura LaTourette. It's pretty easy. I have a tagline that says that lesbian financial planner, just to either piss people off or welcome them in, kind of one of those things.
Scare away the people you don't want, keep
I
the people you
know.
do.
I know. And I hope one day, when I pass away, part of my legacy will be she was that financial planner, that lesbian, or she was that lesbian financial planner. That's who
Right.
she was. But anyway, so I'm on Twitter a lot. I do have LinkedIn profile, and it's a little more mild mannered on that side of the street. And then I've got my website, which is family WM for wealthmanagement.com. So familywm.com. And I have some good resources for sustainability, ESG, LGBTQ issues on my website. Made sure that was visible as well. And I am a certified lesbian business owner and part of the National Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. So there's a couple ways to find me if you want to.
You kind of stalled there when you were saying certified lesbian. I'm like, lesbians have a certification and the gays don't.
I know. When I went through certification, it was so fun. I was like, and then they came out and they inspected and, interviewed me to make sure I was real or something. I was like,
nice. Very cool.
So I am certified and I'm proud of that.
Awesome.
And I have to recertify every year. I mean, they're pretty tough, let me tell you.
Nice.
Nice. But yeah, so I'm around. You can Google my name and find me. I've been around a while, so not hiding under any rocks. Don't you worry.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll definitely have to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it too. Great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Queer Money. Here is your takeaway from this episode. You don't need to invest contrary to your values. So if you're not investing or not investing as much as you'd like because you don't want to add to the bad in the world, know that you do not have to. Check out the resources that Laura mentioned on today's show about investing in ESG mutual funds or exchange traded funds. And I'm sure if you need a little help, Laura would be more than happy to help you.
Then join us next week when we share 5 rarely talked about things LGBT folks can do to help achieve financial independence. Because we need a little bit of rainbow in our financial planning. Thank you and have a great week.